And welcome back to Moving Conversations. I'm Brian Ritchie. Joining me as always is Nora St. John, and we have a special guest today. We'll introduce her in a minute, but for those of you watching on YouTube, you already see her, so she can wave to the audience. But yes, we have an interview today, so we're looking forward to doing that. How are you doing today, Nora?
I'm great, Brian. It's nice and sunny here in California. I think it's going to start raining tomorrow, so we will look forward to a little bit of rain here out in the west, out in the dry west.
Yeah, you can have all the rain that we've been having because it was nasty the last 2 days over here, and it's been cold.
Nice.
You can have some of that too.
Oh yeah, I don't need that.
We don't need it here either, but yeah, my choice for living in DC, let me tell you. So yes, today we have a special guest. We have Melissa McNamara here. Her specialty is kids Pilates, which is something that I didn't really know was out there, but I'm thrilled that it is. And especially for people who, have children who want to get them into movement, it's wonderful. And we're going to get into all of that. Do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe button on the platform of your choice. Also check out our Instagram at Moving Convos, as well as movingconvos@gmail.com is the best way to get in touch with us. And Facebook, Moving Conversations. I think that's it. Oh, check out the YouTube channel. It's under my name, Brian Ritchie. If you want to see all of us live and sort of in person, acting things out, that's the best way to do it. And especially if you are watching from a foreign land, you can always hit the closed captioning in another language. So you can always do that as well. So we got all that behind us. That's behind us. Okay, cool. So I guess it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago that we officially first met, Melissa.
Last year.
Last
November.
Okay. It's interesting because she and I have
been November,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have been traveling to Korea off schedule from one another. I'd go and then I hear you're coming, and then you'd go and I'd be coming after that. So we'd been sort of leapfrogging each other, but never really seeing or meeting each other face to face. So it was really neat to be at the same conference and actually get to know each other and talk and hang out a little bit. So it was really interesting. And now, we talk all the time, and it's really neat to sort of have, another contact with someone with similar experiences, good and bad, from Asia. So it's always nice to be able to celebrate and commiserate some of those issues as everything is in life. But yeah. And like I said, your specialty is kids Pilates. So I'm going to turn it over to you and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, great. I'm Melissa. I've actually been doing kids Pilates longer than I've been doing Pilates, which is funny and interesting because I've also been doing Pilates for over 20 years. So I started with the kids Pilates actually because I was teaching drama in schools. I was teaching theater and drama in schools. I'm also an improviser, a comedic improviser. So I was improvising and teaching drama in schools, and I got into Pilates from a back injury. So I was working at a Pilates studio as a receptionist and doing as much Pilates as I could at the time. And this was back in 2002, 2003. And I was working and this was in Toronto as well. So I was working in the schools in Toronto doing after school programs and lunchtime programs for kids. And just because I was so involved in Pilates and I was trying to rehab myself with Pilates, I started warming the kids up in my classes by doing Pilates stuff. And then I started integrating it into improv games. So we'd be doing, clap focus or something like that, or we'd be doing freeze into different Pilates moves. And I thought it was really fun. And then eventually I started teaching a little bit of Pilates. And there was a class at this studio already that I worked at in Toronto, this amazing studio, Retrofit Bodyworks. And
I know them well.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
same. That's where I started working as a receptionist. Then I became a manager, and then I ended up being an instructor. Loved the studio. And they had like a family Pilates class that my friend Kirsten was teaching. And one day she was just like, "Do you want to teach it?" And I was like, "Yes." And and the first thing I did for this class was I kicked the parents out.
Nice.
Not the most common thing to do. But I was like, okay, if this is going to be a successful class, I need the kids to be able to really focus on me and what I'm saying. And if you have kids, which I now do, but I've worked with kids like my whole life, you know that when their parents are around, sometimes they act out even more because their parents are around and they can get more attention. So the first thing I did was make it just a kids class. So I told parents are going to leave. I even we'd put a note on the door that was like kids space only, no parents allowed. So the parents had to drop them off at the door. And from that, I started experimenting with, okay, how do I get kids' attention? How do I get kids to do what I need them to do? And also, what are the appropriate age groups for things? So this started way back, and I think my first kids class was maybe 2004, something like that. And
I find this very, very interesting because I've actually not only having 2 kids, but also I've done a lot of reading on when you work with children, that there's a big study that actually showed that when the kids were by themselves, they were much more free, much more creative, much more enjoying of the moment. Whereas a lot of times when the parents were watching, the parents would actually tell the kids how to play and what to do. If their kids are put, with a bunch of blocks, for instance, well, the kids might make a fort. They might, start playing something completely different, but the parents will try and, organize them and say, well, here's what you should be doing. Here, you should be using that like this. That's a ball. You should be using that as a ball. It's like, but I want to use it as this instead. And so it's interesting that you instinctually just said, y'all get out, leave this joint. We're going to have fun. And it allows the kids really to just let their hair down and be much more creative and have fun. So I think that you did that instinctually is just fantastic.
And it's something I really, really stick to. And it's something that I teach instructors, because I have this program now where I teach people how to teach kids, because I made all the mistakes first. And so I can tell you all the mistakes. But what I do, because a lot of parents are like, I'm just going to drop my kid off and I want to know what they're doing. I want to know what I'm spending my money on.
Yeah.
So what I do is, and I just had this yesterday, actually, at the end of a series. So I do a class, which is maybe 8 weeks or 12 week series for kids. At the end of the series, parents come for a performance. So they're allowed to come in the last 15, 20 minutes of class, and we put on a Pilates performance for them, which also shows, because part of the Pilates for kids stuff is also social skills and teamwork and things like that, that honestly, probably we should be teaching our adults as well.
Good point.
And so that way the parents can then they're impressed. If they were there every class, they would be like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And it's a lot less pressure for the instructor too, because not every class has to be perfect, because it's not going to be. It's just not going to be perfect when you're working with kids.
Never.
There's going to be some good classes. There's going to be some classes where you walk away and you're like, what happened? And you're up in the middle of the night thinking about how many prizes you could purchase to bribe them with next time. Again, I'm talking from personal experience. I've made the mistakes. So they come and we do a little presentation, So the parents can see what they've learned, and the parents are really impressed because they're like, oh, they're not just playing, they're actually learning these tools, they're learning these movements, they're putting together these movements into stories. And then I also let them, like yesterday, teach an exercise with a prop. So the child would get to choose the exercise and then choose a prop. And then they'd teach the parents, like, this is swan dive with a flex band. And
Awesome.
It's great. That way the parents don't feel like they're wasting their money, like they can see what they've invested in.
Nice.
So, Melissa, a question for you. I've talked to a few people who have worked in this field, and one of the things is, they talk about how kids at different ages need different things in terms of their, both their, and I know that from working with some younger children, not that much younger, in terms of their development, in terms of their physical skills and abilities. Do you feel like you have, like, I'm sure by now I've got a really good sense of, okay, I've got 6 and unders, I've got 7 to 9, I've got like 9 to 12, and understanding what the differences are in all of those. Has that been part of what you've just been working with? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And last year I had like the most fabulous realization, and I decided that there was a whole subset group that had to be created just on its own, and that is called the tweens. So
Yeah.
so basically what I do is I group kids into starting at 4 years old. So
Okay.
from 4 to 6 years old, I teach a very specific type of class that is called movement stories. So the movement stories are, and this I had started teaching. I was a movement specialist for kids, or a drama movement specialist for kids back in, like, when I was still in college, which obviously was like last year. But this is a lot. This is like, I don't know, 2001. I started teaching in preschools in Toronto with an amazing company called Dramaway. And so I do that now, but I also have added Pilates to that. So for 4 to 6 year olds, we do movement stories. And basically a movement story is everybody follow me. So I start the class with a problem, and I have a puppet that, like, says, oh, we have a problem. And obviously little ones love puppets. And then we go to 3 different places to solve this problem, and we find clues. So for this age group, I need like a puppet. I also need visual tools, so I can show them, we found this thing. Okay, that's, so it's different ways to get their attention. Because if you ask 4-year-olds, like, listen to, if you just say,
Herding
listen
cats.
to me, it is like, oh boy, it's so painful. But if you have a visual tool, everybody listens, right? So I have so many tips and tricks for how to teach these different age groups. And I have these specific stories that we go through, and it's like, and I've written this. So this is my next book, because I figured it out. I'm like, it's actually really easy. And that preschool age is really hard to get teachers, because people are so intimidated by the young age. But if you have very specific tools, and if you have like, oh, here's a few stories that really work in terms of movement. I just taught a preschool here in LA. They've made the preschools younger. And so it was like 2 and 3 year olds, and it still worked. And all the parents and the teachers were like, how did that happen? So that's my movement stories in that very young group. And then starting around 7 to 10 is a great age to clump together. This is an age where they're able to actually do a lot of the Pilates mat moves. And I always modify flexion-based exercises. So flexion develops last for human beings, and our extensor group develops first. So you'll notice like kids are really great at like swan and all the back bends and anything that goes into extension. But when it comes to forward flexion, roll-ups, even like rolling like a ball, things like that is very difficult for kids. And it should be difficult. Like, we shouldn't be forcing them to do things that anatomically they cannot do.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that I really like to talk to instructors about, because sometimes we expect kids to do the same exercises that we expect adults to do, and that is really one of the main things that I'm against, where I say, kids are not small adults. But in this age group, so 7 to 10-year-olds, I have 17 exercises, mat exercises, that I take them through, and I have them all on these little cards, because again, visuals are really great for kids. So if I have a visual thing, bam, I get your attention, and they really want to do the thing. And then also it gives them choice. So that's another trick of working with kids, always giving choice, choice of like, you pick a card next, you create the exercise. It's one of like my little tips and tricks. So this age group is like the prime age, I think, for Pilates, is that 7 to 10-year-old age. And they want to do the moves. I put them into like little Pilates stories. So it's different than movement stories. But for example, I line up these different cards, and it's the cat rolled under a bridge to go swimming. So we do cat stretch, then we do rolling like a ball, then we do bridge, and then we do swimming. And that is the first story I teach all kids, because it gets you a good mixture of, flexion and being quadruped as a cat, and kids love cats, rolling like a ball, which can be hilarious, and then bridge, and then swimming is, a really nice prone exercise. And usually at first for swimming, we're just going up and down, and we're not doing the contralateral and reciprocal movement pattern. But speaking of ages still, sorry, I digress. I could talk about this for 17 hours. The next age group, I used to start teenagers at 12. And then I had a class where I was teaching a teens class, and I had an 11-year-old with a 13-year-old. And this was like a couple of years ago. And my teens classes would go like 11, 12 to like 16. And then 17-year-olds can usually go into like a typical class without doing like rollovers and things like that. And I had these two girls in this class together, and it was like, no, this cannot happen. And then I had once a whole class of like 11-year-olds, and I was like, you need your own class.
Yeah.
So now I have Pilates for tweens, which is 11 and 12, and they get their own class, even though it's such a small amount maybe of children, but that age is so precious. And they do mat work, and they start to do a little bit of equipment. There's like a few exercises on the equipment that I feel is safe for them to start to learn. And then I have my teens, which are basically like 13 to 16. And they are doing mat work, but they're also really into the equipment because they're teenagers and they can start doing it, safely. But I really teach the teens, like I teach them as if they're instructors. So we go over how to put on the springs, how much tension is in each spring, how to change your carriage. They know like the settings of the carriage. They know everything. Nice. And I also teach them anatomy as if I teach instructors. Like I teach them the layers of abdominals, and I feel like their brains are such sponges that like, why not? You know?
That's something that I've been harping at for a long time, is I think anatomy should be taught in high school.
Absolutely. I think in junior high school.
Exactly. Way earlier, because I mean, this is our machine. We should learn about it. You should know what you're carrying around with you and understand, especially at a young age, when you are dealing with everything from hormones to your body's changing and one class period of talking about how your body is changing from the, guidance counselor or the gym teacher does not cut it. I'm sorry, that does not cut it. So I think it's so important to be able to educate people at a younger age about our bodies. And I think it's great. And I have to say this, I'm thrilled that you created a course like this, because I can't tell you how many times I've watched people try and take adult-based classes and say, well, we'll just teach kids this, and expect the kids to, okay, you're going to do this, this. Kids are going to respond way differently. That just didn't
Absolutely.
work.
It's also setting children up to hate exercise
Yes.
Yes.
and to hate movements. And so, like, I've had parents message me, like sign their kids up and message me and be like, oh, I've looked at your website. It looks like really fun, but you don't have to make it fun for my kids. My kids are really mature. So you can
Let's make this not fun. Yeah, the kids are going to love this. Let's make it on purpose, not fun.
think it just makes them, if you took your child to a math tutor and said, look, I need my kid to get algebra. Please don't make it fun. Make it like as boring as you can, because I want them to really understand that algebra is serious. Nobody would ever do that. They'd be like, get my kids smart and make algebra fun so that they do it more. You know? So I think it's wild when these parents are like, my child is actually very serious and they're very mature. So you don't have to make it fun. And I'm like, but I want it to be fun. Like,
I was just thinking that when you said those cards, I was thinking, why don't other people do it for adults? Because I taught Group X for a number of years, long time ago, former life ago. And one thing my mom taught me, she's in the fitness world, is every now and then a class will come in and there's a funk over the class. Everybody's kind of in a funky mood and just doesn't want to be there, but it's Monday, I got to do this. And she said, bring out all the balls, put it all in the middle. We're going to jog around the balls and then start kicking the balls to each other. And do this for about 5 or 7 minutes while talking things through, or do some arm movements and just have fun. After that 5, 7, 10 minutes, everybody's laughing, everyone's playing, everyone's enjoying themselves. And it's like, it breaks the monotony. Why can't you have fun? Why do you have to have, here's the choreography, here's what you're going to do in this order, the same way every single time? Are you kidding me? Nothing sounds more boring. You know?
Yep. Another aspect of kids program that I think that we should introduce to our adults is, I was thinking about this last course I taught, is the concept of transitions. So I make it really clear that like a kid's class, like every time I teach a kid's class or even privately with kids, I have very specific things I do for the transition into the space and the transition into this time of exercise.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we've lost a little bit with adults, and we expect them to just like, okay, you're here now, so now we're going to do this thing. We expect them to just like be able to transition really quickly. And I think that in our day and age, like, I think that's harder and harder to do.
Yeah.
So it's something I've been thinking about lately.
Interesting.
I like that.
Interesting.
Hey, so this is great. I'm learning so much already. So thank you, Melissa, because this is exactly what I was hoping would happen. It's like, oh my God, this is just like so rich. A question that Brian wanted to ask you, and he hasn't gotten to it, so I want to get it to you here, is how did you get interested in movement? Like, where did your passion for this begin? Because I always think that's a good question to know from people. So tell us a little bit about that for you.
Yes. Well, I was... The immediate thing that comes to mind when you ask me that is when I was a child, and I hated movement as a child. And I think about this a lot because this is now my job of, teaching movement to kids. And I wasn't in dance. I wasn't in gymnastics. I didn't like movement. And I remember a very specific moment when I was in the 4th grade and I just gone to a new school and we had to run around like this track a few times, as you do. And this little boy looked at me and he goes, "You're not moving your arms. You have to move your arms." And I was like, I do? And so the next time I go around, I start moving my arms, and I was like, wow, running is really fun. And it was just like not intuitive to me to like move my arms. So after that, like I joined track, I became a runner. Like I run almost every day. Like I love running. And it took this little boy to be like, you should move your arm.
That is a great story.
The wisdom of kids.
Seriously.
And we're like, and so I think that's really like, like a really interesting, and weird thing that happened for me. And then getting into Pilates happened when I was in college, and I woke up one day with debilitating back pain. So I think it was like my last year of college, and it just came out of nowhere, as we all know it does. And I was in theater school in Toronto, so I was majoring in performance, and I did a lot of movement theater in college. That was our major, was like devising theater, creating performance, lots of movement based stuff. And I couldn't do the thing I love to do. That summer, I went to San Francisco, and I worked with the San Francisco Mime Troupe, which is a very physically demanding theater company. I found myself like in the emergency room because my back pain was just so bad. And it was very depressing because here I was at like 21 years old, and I couldn't run, I couldn't exercise, I couldn't do theater, I couldn't do anything. So I moved back to Ohio, and I saw the surgeon for the Cleveland Browns, the back doctor for the Cleveland Browns. I think my dad like paid out of pocket for me to see this guy because we were like, what is wrong with her? And my x-rays and my MRIs came back with like some herniations and degenerative disc disease, which that's pretty young to have that. Yeah. And we saw one doctor who was like, oh, well, let's do surgery. And then this Cleveland Browns doctor, I'll never forget this moment. He looked at me, he almost laughed, and he goes, just get stronger. And I was like, I was so mad. I go, excuse me?
Really?
And he goes, but like Iron Woman strong. He's like, you need to be ridiculously strong, but just go get stronger. And I was furious, and I left bawling my eyes out. And I moved back to Toronto, and I had and Pilates wasn't that popular for like everyday people back in like 2001, 2002. And I was walking home one day from teaching a theater class to kids, and I saw this studio, and Retrofit Bodyworks, and I went in and I asked them if I could take their seniors class for senior citizens.
Because you look just like a senior citizen.
Right.
Because I was like, I'm in so much pain. I feel like I'm 80 years old. Like I was in so much pain. And I know I have to get stronger, but I can't do anything. I couldn't run anymore. I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't do anything. And they were like, no, you cannot take that class. But I knew I couldn't afford private sessions or anything like that. And then I saw an ad in Craigslist that I think or in the newspaper or something, because this was so long ago, that they were hiring a receptionist. So I got a job the next week at the same studio that I had asked them if I could take their senior citizens class. And by becoming a receptionist, you could do classes for free. So I took 2 classes a day, every single day. And I started to just really understand my body and just got really, really strong.
So he was right.
And that's
what you needed.
Was 100 times right. And it's so frustrating. And it's so frustrating to tell my clients too, because as Americans, we just want a quick fix.
Mhm.
Like I wanted
Oh,
surgery so bad. I wanted surgery. I wanted some magical shot. I
yeah.
wanted a magical pill. I wanted something.
Yep.
And it turns out I just needed to become super, super strong and to understand my body. Like it took
Yes.
me really having to like, I'm a very forebrain type of person. Again, like I need somebody to tell me to move my arms to run. So I needed to like really get in depth to like study anatomy and to like really understand my body in order for me to heal myself. And that's how I got into Pilates. That's how I completely healed my back. You know, I obviously still had degenerative disc disease and I always will, but I have no pain.
Yeah. What's interesting is we do as Americans, and I think just as human beings, we want something to be fixed now because I'm in pain, take pain away, please. But, and I tell this to clients all the time who want to rush into surgery. I said, okay, you want to do surgery. I get it. Guess what? You still have to get strong after surgery. You
Right.
still have to do the work. You can either do it beforehand and maybe not need the surgery, or you can modify your body and then do it afterwards and deal with the consequences and hope everything went right. And sometimes by explaining that, they go, oh, and I say, you're going to still have to do rehab for a year. So guess what? For the next year, you're still exercising, whether you like it or not. And when
Yeah.
people hear that, they don't like it. But I've had a number of people tell me, oh, okay. And they seem to get it. Like, okay, I still have to work at this. So the fact that, you had to work at it, but you took it far beyond what most people would do. If you're doing 2 classes a day, I mean, you were hardcore, man. You
You're
wanted this to be
committed.
fixed. Yeah, which is great. That's fantastic. So
Yeah.
very cool. Very cool. Uh,
Yeah.
Tell us about your book.
So
I have a copy
during
right here, and it's awesome.
Yay! Um, so during the pandemic, there's a couple different types of people in the pandemic, you know? I was
Yes.
the type of person that was like, okay, well, I'm at home with a 2-year-old. So I guess I'll write a book. I did like a semester of college. I did my husband and I created like a bunch of videos that went online and like I just and like really filled my space. I was like, what are the things that I've like always wanted to do? And I've been wanting to write this book since I got published in a magazine, I think back in 2004 or something like that for Pilates for Kids. And after that, like I started compiling all my stuff and I was like, I'm going to write a book. And for all this time, I've been like, I'm going to write a book. So during the pandemic, I sat down and forced myself to write a book. And it is, and I have an illustrator in Toronto, Chris Henderson. He's amazing. He's a close friend of mine from theater school. And we collaborated. And then a friend of mine from grad school, I went to grad school in Boulder, Colorado. She helped do the design on the inside, which I was like, I'm not a visual artist person at all. I'm like an everything else type of artist, but not visual. And so it's really super fun. We've
It
got fun
is.
pictures.
That's just it. It's when you sent this to me a while ago, I started looking at it saying, wait a minute. It's written almost as though it were drawn by kids for kids, which is fantastic because it's so friendly. It's so like, oh yeah, it sort of made sense. And I had just written a book, so I was sort of, I understood the process of it. I'm thinking, this is genius. It really is. It's so smart to make it so easy for people to pick up, understand. And if you're working with kids, the last thing a kid wants to be done is lectured to. What they want is to sit on your lap and to look at the pictures with you and say, okay, here's what we're going to do if you're going to do this, with them and play around with them and whatnot, which I think every parent should do. I would love to see every young parent get on the floor and do Pilates with their kids because I think movement is the most important thing we can do for children at that young age, to really get them to understand that movement is fun and should be treated that way. So I think I read this and I said, man, this is it's exactly what my wife would have wanted. She would have immediately been drawn to this if she'd gone to the bookstore and saw something and been like, yeah, that's the one that she would have chosen because it's friendly, it's fun. It doesn't look like here's a list of exercises that you should be doing. So I commend you for that. That's really cool.
Thank you. And it's funny because when I started writing it, I'm a instructor trainer for Stott Pilates. And so I teach instructors. And one of the things that instructors are always like have a hard time with is like the cueing language.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was putting this together, I was like, well, talk to your client like they're a kid, like start real, like just be really simple, and I'm writing the cues for some of these exercises. And I was like, cueing words, curl into a ball. That's all you have to say, or like hug your knees and elbows. Great. Like start really simple. And I told some of my instructors, I was like, once I have this book, like just use these cues for your adults. It's fine.
Absolutely. We all
and then integrate some nuances. Yes.
Yeah.
That's
I think people get hung up on saying the right thing and to be anatomically correct and to say everything perfectly instead of sometimes just break it down to the barest, simplest way to do it possible, because chances are that's what their brain will remember and say, oh yeah, okay.
Put your leg there.
Yeah.
Roll up.
Exactly.
Roll over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
And another thing in this book is I give class plans for teachers. So like you could take this and have a 6-week session so that at the end it tells you like exactly like how to organize a class. And I think part of the success of like a kid's class, and I teach classes very differently than I do for kids' private sessions. Mm-hmm. So private sessions for kids are very different. And usually I have kids with special needs as well when I have a private session. So that's a little bit different. But a kid's class, I think the success comes from the way the class is organized. And that was one of the things that took me a long time to figure out, like, okay, how do I organize a kid's class? And I think that's really one of the tricks. And that's one of the things is that I teach in the program is like, this is what you do, then you do this thing, then you do, and it's all different exercise. Not just, we don't just do exercises the whole time. You can't do exercises with kids for 45 minutes. But it's very much a on the mat, off the mat type of structured class. So it's structured and unstructured at the same time.
Nice.
So what I'm hearing, which is really great, is several things. One is, I know from having written a bunch of things and understanding instructor training and that kind of stuff, you've taken your experience and you've been able to articulate it, right? Which is what is so clear. What's coming through you is that you've been able to take all these years of working with kids and then kind of understand like, well, why do I make those choices? And then be able to articulate those, which is amazing. And what I love that you just said was the things you've learned from exploring and working with kids that you use with adults. Because really motor learning is kind of the same, whether you're 60 or whether you're 6. It's like, where do I put my legs? Where do I put my body? What kind of global image really helps me to get where I need to go? So if you mind, like, what else do you think you've learned from working so much with kids that has just helped you to work with all of your clients, whether they're special needs or whether they're older or anything like that?
Yes. So one of the things I implement for my adults are some of the props I use with kids. Mm-hmm. So, and I have one client who she's so amazing. But she started having her teens come to see me. And then one day I was working with her and she's an ex-dancer. And anytime we talked about like neutral pelvis or anything, she would just get so frustrated, and she was just like, oh, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And she really would overthink it. and here I am just being like, just don't worry about it. And she's like, I have to worry about it.
Right. Yes.
Right. Like that's her
I
brain.
had one of those
I'm
today.
like, yeah, I'm like, you're doing great. Like, I think you're really getting it. And I'm a pretty positive teacher, but to her, she just felt like she needed all the things. And so what I use with my teenagers, even my teenagers, is I take these toy boats that you use in the bathtub. And we use that to teach neutral. And now with kids, everybody teaches Pilates differently, obviously, but especially with like kids and teenagers, I never teach imprint. I don't teach like a scooping or a tucking. I just teach neutral, because if that's the final goal, like why would I have to teach anything else? So I use these toy boats to just talk about like, oh, that's on your pelvis. And we joke around and we say there are pelvic props. And so I put this boat, between her hip bones, her ASIS, and I was like, okay, now we're going to do this exercise with the silly little prop here. And she was like, it was like, that was the thing that she just needed, something tactile.
Yeah.
That wasn't like a hand or, and with the kids and with my teens, once they start getting it, we also fill up that boat with water. And then that becomes another challenge of like, oh, so instead of saying, oh, you need to do this exercise slower, because if you try to tell a child to do something slower, you will not succeed. You say, don't spill the water. Bam. Now you've gotten a kid to go slower, right? The other thing I use are like, I use a bunch of like, I use so many props when I teach kids. Like I have a whole bag. I'm like Mary Poppins. I use all these like squishies, the squishy things you can get online. I use those for like everything. Because again, like anything tactile or choices are really good. Even with adults, I like to give them choices. And for breathing, I use, what are they like? The party things that you blow out, like for New Year's.
Yeah. The little blowers.
Yes, and I use those, and I also use straws. So if I have a client who wants to have some fun, we use those, and that way they're forced to make the sound. Like if you have to blow through those things, they're actually really hard. But especially in LA, I find that my clients don't want to breathe, and they don't want to breathe in a way that might make them feel vulnerable or embarrassed. So they're like, and I'm like, no, we need to exhale. And they're like, so I'll pull out my tools and I'm like, okay, now we're going to a party, and we'll get the thing that you have to blow out, or even just a straw, because blowing through a small narrow straw, like you have to use a good amount of exhale and a good amount of force. And it's been so helpful. Like if I can use that and the boat and say, okay, as don't move your back, but as you blow through the straw or through the thing, see if you can get that boat to just sink down just a little bit, without imprinting or tucking or anything like that. But they may finally get that concept of engaging their transversus abdominis and being in a neutral pelvis. So those are,
awesome.
Yeah.
Anything that you can get an adult or anybody to have fun and to play is just so important, and that's great. I'm thinking I'm going to steal some of that. Those are really good ideas.
Please do.
Absolutely. One of the things I often say is if you can feel it, you can change it. So, if whether it's a kid or an adult, if they can feel in their own body what you want them to do, like watch the boat tip and water fall out. That's like a very active experience, as opposed to imagine, you're sinking, blah, 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 whatever the words are. Everybody's imagination is that effective. They need like something very practical and very physical. I mean, whether a kid or an adult. That's awesome. I love that.
I have these reformer stories I do with like the jump board. And I remember one time before I was going to teach it to instructors, I was like, can I use you as my guinea pig? I just want to practice teaching this a few times to one of my clients. And so we did, so we're on the jump board and we're like walking, and then we're like, we find a mountain and we have to jump, and there's this whole story. And then I add improv to it, and I have kids do improv with it too. And I did this for 45 minutes with my client, and she was like, that was the best workout ever.
Yep.
Because now she's in the
awesome.
story and she gets to do this really fun thing, and she doesn't have to think about her life or like what muscles are working, but she's just doing it. And it was so much fun.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I love that.
And you've brought fun to it. That's awesome.
Making it fun and engagement and imagination, like that's fully engaged. That's what we're always looking for, is paying attention. As Joseph Pilates said, if you pay attention, you get a lot more out of it if you don't pay attention. And that really just involves the whole being. Their brain is working, their mind, their imagination's working, their body's working, and they're all coming together. That's awesome. That's as powerful as you can get in terms of teaching movement. And it really helps it sink in.
And how often as adults, are people asked to be creative? Are people asked to use their imagination and to have fun and to do something that's a little silly? Because we all want to be very mature, and I am a CEO for a company, and then they're not asked to be silly. But everybody has that little kid still inside of them. And I see this with parents all the time. When my kids were younger, we'd be at the park and you'd see the very serious ones trying to tell their kid, you should, and everything. And I'm playing, I'm jumping all around, I'm swinging, and it's like, have fun with them. You can always tell the ones who just dove right in and had fun with their kids. The kids appreciated that a lot more than the ones that just sort of stood there, almost like they're being watched and, graded on how they played. And that's no fun. You want a fun parent. And I think we need excuses sometimes to come out of our shell and to just enjoy ourselves. And that's a wonderful way to do it.
Well, and in terms of movement, it's like the only way you're going to get a client to keep coming back is if they learned something or enjoyed something or felt something. Right? If they're bored, if you're just doing what you've always done, or and you, like, every client's got to have that reason to come back. Yep. And again, I'm sure for you too, Melissa, and I know you, Brian, so many of our clients, we have to teach them to love movement again, or love it for the first time, because they've either had bad experiences or they're just not in their body or whatever. And a lot of our job is to make them just really enjoy it, because if they do, then they commit, they come, they move on, they learn the stuff, they keep coming, and they make improvement.
And if you think about kids, you said it yourself. And for me, I was always the biggest kid in school. I was always the most, I hated PE class, couldn't stand it, because I was always the one tortured. I was the last picked. I was the one tortured, and which makes everybody laugh. That like, this is what you do for a living. You hated this. It's like, yeah, but I wasn't introduced to it in a way that made it fun. It was always, here's what we're doing today. And a lot of gym teachers still do that. Yeah. And what you're doing is making movement enjoyable for kids at a young age, so that they can have fun and enjoy the process, and not see it as, here's what you have to do. You have to exercise. And it's not torturous. It's enjoyable. You just have to find out what it is about it that makes it enjoyable for you. And I think what you're doing for Pilates is fantastic, because kids are introduced to something that most people don't discover until they're well into their adulthood with Pilates.
And I have so many clients that I see, maybe not until they're 80, and they have a hard time distinguishing what is pain and what is like their muscles working. Right? Or, and
sensation.
They've never felt the joy of movement. And it's very complicated for their brain at that point to then figure out like, does that feel good or does that feel bad? I will also say my daughter doesn't like PE, but my daughter has been she could wake up and do a 10-minute plank. She's like the strongest kid in the world and very coordinated as well. But I think another issue that we have, especially here in the US, is that the PE teachers, like, maybe it's a sports thing. I'm not sure if it's like too focused on just like, this is a sport and this is what we do.
Yeah.
But also the expectation of what children's bodies can do is a little bit wrong. So with, the president's test and all of those things of like, you should be able to touch your toes at these ages, you should be able to do a full sit up. I've done a lot of research the past few years about what kids' bodies should be able to do. And because that's very important to me too, that we're not like forcing movements on them that is inappropriate. So if we're taking, and the kids in high school, my high schoolers coming in, they're like, I hate PE because we do all these sit-ups and it hurts my neck. Right. Well, and I'm like, you shouldn't be doing sit-ups. You're 14 years old. There are other core exercises to do when you don't have that flexion capability. So why are they doing that? And why do they have to hold a plank for 5 minutes? And when they don't have the stamina and the shoulder stability to even hold it for 10 seconds yet. They don't even know what you're talking about. So we've got these kids in school who then think, I don't like movement because I don't like PE. I don't like exercise because I don't like traditional PE. And I will tell you that the kids that do the best in my Pilates classes, I'm so thankful that their parents have found Pilates because they hate PE. They've never wanted to do dance, gymnastics. I have a lot of parents who are like, oh, my kid's not very physical, so they won't like it. And I'm like, no, those are the kids that actually love my class. They're the ones that actually love it because I'm not asking them to do things that aren't good for their bodies. I'm asking them to have fun and then to move their body in a way that feels good for them. And they end up doing so well, and they end up progressing, and then they end up being able to do pull-ups and ridiculous, like such hard things that their parents are like, I never thought that was possible. So yeah, I really think it's unfortunate that our schools have a system where they're putting kids into exercises where it's just not great for their bodies.
Yeah. I'm dealing with this. Yeah. With my youngest, he enjoys social. So for him, sports has always been about playing with other kids, not about winning. And I remember he was put on a baseball team, and he's fast. He's a runner. He was a natural born runner. He doesn't get it from me, trust me, but he's a natural born runner. And the coach saw he had this unbelievable speed. So they're like, I'm going to draft him. And come to find out though, my son had never played baseball before, didn't really know how to catch or throw very well, couldn't swing a bat. He could just run, but the coach saw potential. But this was also the #1 team in the league because they were the diehard. They killed everybody. They wanted to run a score up, 30-0. That was this kind of coach. And we realized real fast, this is not what my son wants. He just wants to play. He'd strike out and come off the field going, yay. And the other kids would be teasing him and yelling at him. And he's like, why am I being yelled at? He said, I swung at the ball. It was fun. And I immediately yanked him. And we're doing that, through school, the same thing. It was like, okay, you have to find out what it is about these sports that you like. You like the social aspect. Cool. Go have fun with your friends. We go to the gym and it's he and I, and we play. He does his weightlifting, but we make it fun and we joke around and we pal around, and it makes it more social for him. And that's to me, that's even more important, is that he's enjoying the time. He's enjoying what he's doing. And I wish we had something like you here that I could have put them in at a younger age, where they would have had all of that creativity and fun and enjoyment, rather than being yelled at by the coaches, that you're not doing it correctly. You're not doing it right.
One of my, an instructor that I worked with in Southern California, Dawn Marie Ikes, she was at PT and she was doing Pilates for Kids program there. And it was interesting because she did a little, like an 8-week study where she had the kids do, I think, class twice a week. I think they're kind of in the 8 to 10 range. they did class twice a week, and they were really looking at kind of subjective measures. So first, kind of like self-esteem measures and self-confidence measures and that kind of thing. And they did a pre-test before they started, and then they did one 8 weeks later. And the main thing they got out of that was, yes, their physical abilities improved, but more than that, their self-confidence improved, their self-esteem improved, like just their sense of confidence and control and understanding of their body. And that translated directly into them just feeling better about themselves, because like if you inhabit this thing, you feel better than if you're not inhabiting this thing, because this is kind of where you live. And it was really nice to see that. And I'm sure you experience that all the time in terms of your teaching. It was interesting, that's what that study showed about empowering kids to move really changes how they approach everything.
Yeah, it's huge. And especially, I think, for all ages of kids, but I think especially for that like tween into teens age group, when their bodies are starting to change and like social things are starting to change. Like I remember I had a group of tweens come in and ask me one time, like, how do we get a six pack? And I was like, let's talk about what a six pack is. This is a great conversation. And it was great because I don't want them going on TikTok or YouTube and going, how do I get a six pack? Yeah. So we talked about, what the superficial muscles are. We talked about why it looks that way, in media and things like that. And then we did the thing that you do sometimes when you're teaching anatomy. We got like all the flex bands out and we wrapped them around as different muscles. And then we did different exercises, and then they created exercises. I'd say, okay, now you create an oblique exercise. And so they could create one based on like where the bands were and how the muscles contracted. And I think it would have been a really big deal when I was a teenager. Because I think understanding why things are the way they are, or understanding why my body looks like this, is really important.
Yes. And I think that's that way for everybody. My staff sort of jokes at me that I'm always lecturing, and it's not lecturing, but I'm always teaching with my clients. I want them to know their body. To me, it's not like someone's injured or hurt, so they come to me like they would take their car to a mechanic and just basically drop it off, leave it there, and come back a week later. No, you have to live in this thing. You need to understand it. And you need to understand the reason we're doing these exercises is because I want you to do this, 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 and this, and it's going to help you in everyday life. And once they get that understanding, they can own it. And it makes them responsible for them getting better. And I think if we start that at a younger age and really explain that, it makes them want to learn more, and it makes them understand better. And you said it yourself. I mean, they were creating exercises and they were having fun, and they finally understood, wow, that's what the abdominals are. They're not just those little lumps that go down. There's 6 or 8 of them, on those perfect people that everybody tells me I should look like. They actually understand that, oh, this is responsible for movement. And that's a huge thing for people to sort of understand at a young age. And I think that's awesome. Very, very cool. Anything else, Nora, that you want to bring up? I mean, we've covered an hour and it's gone by. Like I looked up and I was like, oh my gosh, I swear it's been 10 minutes.
No, I've learned so much and been so inspired by the work you're doing, how you put it together, the thought you put into it, just the joy that you bring to it. So I'm super inspired, and I just, I hope some of our listeners will also have that same experience, and we'll have all their contact information for you and for the book and for your courses, after we don't put that all in the show notes, because if somebody works with kids or has kids or just wants to understand how to work with them effectively, this has been phenomenal. I just really appreciate your time, and I learned a whole lot. So thank you.
So before we go, I want to ask a couple of things. Okay, number one, where can they reach you if someone wants to find out more about your program? Because you do have an awesome program of certification of how to create this and how to become a teacher and instructor for Pilates for kids. So how can they do that?
They can reach me through email through mindartcore@gmail or melissa@macpilates.com.
MAC
I also
Pilates.
macpilates.com.
Okay.
I also have macpilatesforkids.com. And Instagram is really easy. People can even message me on Instagram. And my students, people who once they train with me, I always say like that's an open door too. So you could be teaching a class or have a kid and then like not know what to do with them or have a situation come up. And I have people all over the world message me and go, "This situation came up in a class. How
Yep.
do I deal with it?"
Nora and I go through that all the time.
Yeah. And I'm really happy to help guide people. I also wanted to mention really quickly that I'm starting new research with a pediatric OT on primitive reflexes. And that is that's a new area of study I'm very interested in. So future courses that I will have will also, I just taught at IDEA Korea, and I taught a little bit of this just to see if people were interested. And I taught some exercises about the Moro reflex, which is the startle reflex, and how it connects to our core. And so I'm really excited about starting a little bit more of that research and going down that path too. So there will be more advanced courses coming up as well. And I use that too for some of my kids with special needs.
Fantastic.
So that's the other thing that's been really exciting is that as I've gotten more and more working with more and more children, is I've started having more and more kids with special needs, more and more kids on the spectrum, especially. And I'm seeing how much Pilates is helping them. And it's the most exciting thing for me. So I'm really excited to keep doing my own personal research there so that I can help guide other instructors with that, because I think it's like that's the way we're going.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Secondly, where can we get your book?
Right now it's on Etsy or on my website. So macpilates.com. And it's on my Etsy page, which is macPilates.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And I'm already going to throw it out there. We'd love to have you come back because there's something that you do that I find fascinating, but I want to dive into a little bit more next time because it involves movement as well. So if this is a little preview for everybody, so we're definitely going to want you to come back. And also next time, I'd love for you to go into maybe how you would, create a class and sort of walk me through that and walk us through, the creation of one. And, I think that would be fascinating for people to really sort of see, especially those who have kids or who, want to teach with, teach kids. So I'm holding an open invitation for the future.
Done.
So awesome. Awesome. And yes, all of your information is going to be in the show notes, as well as on Instagram. So that will all be out there for the world to see. You can always reach us again so if you have any questions that you want us to pass along, if you don't want to reach out to Melissa herself, you can always reach out to either Nora or myself. Movingcombos@gmail.com is the best way to get in touch with us. Do hit the like and subscribe button, and do us a favor. If you like the show, put it in, the comment section, because believe it or not, every comment that's said, helps our algorithms, help bounce, build us up. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Melissa, for coming on today.
Awesome.
We've been talking about this for a while, so I'm thrilled that we were actually able to get you on.
Me too. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. And yeah, I could talk for a million hours about all of this. So
Awesome.
We can do many more.
Awesome.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us. For Nora St. John, I'm Brian Ritchie. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.